obscure world of parking. We use it every day, but have we really capitalized on the intricacies of our industry? In this podcast, the Parking Network will go behind the scenes and talk to industry professionals about all things parking, from the horizon of evolving technology and even stories of the old days. We hope to encourage and inspire operators and property managers alike to look at parking through a new lens.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to our Parking Industry Podcast. My name is Lee Thomas here at TPN Consulting, and we are glad you've joined us for a follow-up conversation about LPR technology and its presence in the parking industry. Last episode, we had a very lively conversation with SurVision's Laura Cayo. It was a really fun episode to record. I had a blast. And SurVision people, thank you for being on our podcast. And I personally apologize for mispronouncing the name of your company consistently. I was calling you SureVision because I was sure I was right. But no, it's SurVision out of Florida. So thanks for being with us. But today I have resident expert Clyde Wilson with me, and we are going to chat some more about LPR, where it's been, where it's going, how it impacts the parking industry, and what we need to know if we want to manage it well. So, Clyde, let's get started. How is LPR affecting the parking industry today?
Thank you so much. And it was a very interesting conversation with Laura. That she did a great job. And we learned a lot about her company, and what impact LPR is having today on the parking industry. For me, LPR has been around for a fairly long time, and it's had a really sordid history. But today, there's been a lot of effort put into perfecting LPR by a lot of great companies around the world, basically. And LPR is really changing the way we manage parking. You almost cannot go into a facility today that doesn't have LPR connected through the cash control system, either as a very primary source or as a secondary source. Most of them are now primary. All of the LPR systems that we're using, that we're auditing today, LPR is the primary means of recognizing a vehicle. Other means are secondary. So it's really moved into our industry, but it's been a long, sordid past, which I think is a good thing because it means it has survived. Everybody challenging it, saying it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and it has survived. And it's come to a point now where it's everywhere in our parking business. So that should tell us all a lot, that it has survived. It's survived all the challenges, and it is answering now some of the very basic questions we would have about it, which is its reliability rate. But it's like you mentioned earlier in our conversation, Lee, just the accountability, the quickness, the accuracy of a transaction. It's really overcome those hurdles. So it combined with then the cell phone, which is creeping in between the two as another source of identification. Those two are devices that everybody has. If you pull into a garage, you've got a car, you have a license plate, and you have a phone. So we're really changing the way we manage parking. We've had a parking ticket. I'm not sure I even know for sure how long we've had a parking ticket. I know where they came from. Parking tickets came from actually the trains in New York City back in the 40s and 50s. They were the little tiny ticket that you used at the fair. So you would get a ticket at the fair to do something, right? That's what they were. You put a quarter in the machine and spit one of those little tickets out for you. That got you on the train. You got on the train, but it didn't have anything on it. And so the conductor then used his little squeeze machine and went click, 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 which identified that ticket as today. And the time or whatever else they were clicking on there. So we've gone from there, and that lasted for at least 80 years. And there are still the majority of machines out there today still use paper ticket of some type. So the paper ticket is still around. However, its necessity is starting to drift away. And we're moving over to something that works. And the LPR has stood the test of time now and starting to really work. And then the phone items are really working too. So that's something that we all have to start paying attention to as you're looking at buying new park systems, as you're looking at managing and improving the management of the systems that we have out there today. You've got to really take a hard look at LPR because it's here.
You've mentioned this innovation process before in other conversations about how when we bring something new to the industry, it takes time to work out all the kinks and, like you said, to let the technology flourish, to see if it's going to survive, and then see how it changes and improves and evolves. So something about LPR that has changed a lot is the read rate. Can you tell us where we've been, where we are, and where we're going with that accuracy rate?
Yeah, I think so. The read rate has really changed over time because in the early days of LPR, the read rate was important, but it wasn't that important. In the early days of LPR, it wasn't used in the parking lane as a part of the cash control system. It was used as inventory. So I don't know whether I've told this story on the air before, but I'll tell the story. The first time I saw this used was at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And I'll tell the story again. We told it quickly, I think, on Laura's show. At airports, a good number of the people actually go on a trip. So they're gone for 3 or 4 days or a week, and the airport rates are kind of high. So when you come back, you're going to end up paying a high price for the 4 days you've been gone. So what guys on business trips used to do is they would have their wife come out, drive in, pull a ticket. So now it's there. She hands it to him. He now throws his ticket away, his 5-day ticket away. He exits with the ticket that's only 30 minutes old. And the grace period at airports usually lasted that long. So he got out for free. She turned around and drove to the exit and said, "I've lost my ticket, but I just came in to drop my husband off." And so they let her out, right? So what they started doing was at least they could keep up with the night inventory. So they had people walking these 7,000 space parking lots at airports with a notepad writing down license. That improved to, and I don't think any of you guys are old enough to remember this, but you might. If you remember going into the grocery stores or other stores and the inventory clerk who had a keypad on his hip, hanging from his hip, and he would walk around and key the keypad, key in the inventory, the stock numbers of the items there, and how many. Well, we use that to key in license plates. So we had people walking around airport parking lots all night long, keying in license plates to this little keypad on their hip. That was next. And if you missed some, it didn't really matter. It was only there in case that guy over there decided to try to cheat the system. So if the read rate, if their keying in was not terribly accurate, it didn't change the world at the parking lot at the airport. So the accuracy wasn't that terribly important. But then it moved to the next level. And the next level, and I think I remember this correctly. I know I remember this. The first time I saw this was at an parking convention in Seattle. And this was when they were presenting LPR cameras as the next big thing in inventory. So they put cameras on the outside of vans. Inside the van, they had built a desk with computer screens and had 2 people sitting in there. And they had floodlights on the outside of the van focusing on the license plate height of a car, right? So the van drove through the parking lot. And you heard Laura tell the story too. They're still doing this. They would have the van drive through the parking lot and the cameras. At that time, I think that the cameras were taking the pictures of the license plate. They were showing up on the screen. I think it actually, before the cameras went into effect, I think the cameras were just showing the view on the monitor, and the person sitting there was punching in the license plate because we didn't have optical character recognition in 1997 to read the characters so we could see it. I'll tell the story with Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. This is all to tell you how far this has come to where we are today. And I think it's part of the reason it's so successful today is we've been through all these trials. That money at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport was millions and millions of dollars that were lost every year due to people cheating the system, using two people to get out. Pull a ticket, hand it to me. I've been in only 30 minutes instead of 4 days. And then you drive out and say, I lost my ticket. So I don't remember when this was. This was 25 years ago, I believe. Somebody, I'm sure there's still somebody around at DFW Airport that can tell me when this happened. But I drove up. I was there one day with, I don't remember, but I was driving to the entrance. I drive up and there's a cashier booth and a person sitting in the cashier booth looking toward me. I'm in the car and I can see she's looking at a monitor. Well, as I got to a certain point, there was a camera behind me taking a picture or showing my license plate. I'm taking a picture of it, showing it, and she was sitting there keying in the license plate of every single car that came in or out of DFW Airport in the course of the day. So then the big step forward was optical character recognition eliminated her job, and it started taking a picture of it. But that was only for the purpose of inventory. It had nothing to do with cash control. It was just for inventory. So that when I decided to play the trick and not present my ticket, but present a 30-minute ticket that my wife had gotten for me, they would punch in the license plate number and say, oh, hey, Bozo, you came in 4 days ago, not just 30 minutes ago. And so then I would have to pay the $50 for parking. So that's where it got its start, but it's moved forward and improved. And as the accuracy got better, it wandered its way into the entry lanes, the parking lanes, and it was still struggling. It was still struggling with an accuracy. So most people said, well, it's there. The early stages of this were, I think one of the parks companies started taking a picture of the license plate and then printing it on the paper ticket. This still exists. This is still around. Printing it on the paper ticket. So you had a ticket that had a transaction number on it, but it also had your license plate in case you tried to play a trick. It would the license plate was there, and it showed to you that it was recorded in the system. So they could, if you presented it, it came up to the exit booth and said, "I don't have my ticket." They would look at the computer screen, type in the license plate number in your card, and say, "Oh yeah, you did. You came in 5 hours ago, not 10 minutes ago."
One place that we actually don't want good information, right?
That's perfect. You're right. But our job is to improve that. So now that it's moved into the parking lane, then we started with the next challenge was, how good is it? How can we use it? Is it usable? And it went through a long history of a bad reputation, I thought. It went through this long history of, it's only a 70% read rate. Well, in our business, we can't accept a 70%. So then you get people like me step in here and go, well, why is it only a 70% read rate? There's got to be a reason for this. So you start looking at it and you start getting a camera in a lane that I can sit there and watch and look at it. And I start seeing, well, you have a couple of things. First of all, the frame around the license plate. When you buy a new car, the car dealer puts their frame around the license plate. Well, if it's an F, it's an F, and the frame around the license plate sticks up a little bit at the bottom, it'll think it's an E. So the LPR picks it up as an E. So that frame can could change the license plate that it's reading. Some other things would change the plate. One of the things that was really bad, if the lighting was different and the plate had been banged up a little bit in an accident and was just a little bit twisted, the light shining on it, if the light was in the wrong direction, it would cause it to change and it would misread it. And then we have something that they don't have in Europe, where the LPR really got its start. We have stuff that we put on our license plate. It's not just the names or stuff that people put on the license plate, but it's the college symbols. The Alabama A, the Auburn A, the Peachtree for Florida, the all of the different symbols that we put on a license plate. Well, LPR looks at that and thinks it must be a character. If it's an orange, it looks like an O to me. And if it's an A for Auburn, it's an A in the license plate. So it struggles with reading that. And that went through. I mean, I spent a lot of time on the phone with LPR people trying to figure out how to solve it. I wasn't any help in trying to solve it. Only help I was is that you've got to fix this for me, please. And they did, and they really worked at it. And the software got better and better and better. And so that read rate went up. But the thing that we noticed the most, I still had people in 2012, 13, 14, I think, telling me that LPR was still too bad. The read rate was still horrible. And by that time, I had LPR systems that I had helped developed and knew a little bit about. So I started figuring out, you know what? This read rate that everybody's decided to throw their hands up and say 75% is about as good as you're going to get, it's really much better than that. But you've got to manage it. And no offense to anybody, I think this is just the parking industry. The owners, the installers, developers that were putting in LPR on the garages were failing to work with the parking operators and telling them they had to manage this. Because once we got it managed, I mean, in 2015 and 16, we had LPR systems that were up to 99.999%. And there were people I would tell that to, and they would say, "There's no way." I'd say, "Well, we can show you." But you had to manage it. And you had to manage the characters on there because the software people had to be alerted that we have these characters, we have this problem. And then we can also do something you and I were talking about earlier, and I think this must still exist. It was called N-1 and N-2. All that meant was, if an LPR system misread a license plate, that doesn't mean it misread every character of the license plate. It just meant that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 didn't come back as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It could be any one of those numbers off, and it would cause it to fail. So you could put into the software, you could put in N-1, which meant if one of those numbers is off, but the character's in the right order, if the 5 at the end is read as an S, let's say. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but on the exit, it reads it as 1, 2, 3, 4, S. It would say, well, the 1, 2, 3, 4 is all in the right order. This must be that car, and it would accept it. So we started using N-1 a lot. I didn't use N-2. I felt like we had to force ourselves to manage it good enough to stay within N-1 as the best to get that level. But it was pretty good. So once you get up in the high 99%, then you start being something that the parking industry can accept. We can't even accept 90. You can't have 10% of the cars that pull into your garage that we can't read the license plate. So we have to have 99%. I think today I noticed that the LPR people are really reluctant to say they can read higher than 90%. But I think they all can. I think they know it. And I also know that if they can read higher than 90%, a little bit of management can get you to 100% or close to 100%. We used to, the first one I put in and I learned about the license plate tag around the license plate, I went right online, found a place that sold them. I could buy license tags that were skinny little tags. And when we saw somebody that the license tag we thought was causing a problem, we knew who they were. So we would, if they were a visitor, we'd put a note on their car. If they were a monthly parker, we would call them and say, "We're having trouble reading your plate because of the tag. Because of the ring around the tags, we have a new frame for you. If you don't mind, we'll put it on your car today." And they would always 100% said, "Sure, I don't care about that frame. I just want my license plate to read." So we would put it on, and that would knock out, maybe 5 or 6 cars in the garage. That frame was impacting the license plate. So it's just management. LPR today is so good. The improvements are coming, it seems, every month, it seems. They're improving and doing better things. And with just a little bit of parking management, it's a great thing for us to have and to look at. And probably one of the most important things is, and we're doing it right now, Lee, in an audit that we're working on, one that you and I are working on together. LPR gives us something nothing else can give us. For your visitors, the people that we don't know who they are, over the course of parking, they've just driven in and drive out, and we don't know who they are, but we know they come. It's not that we know who they are, but we do know who they are because we can run the license plate reads and see, well, that person comes in about twice a month. That person comes in every day. We know who they are. This is a daily group of people that are parking as visitors, but they're in our garage every day. This group over here that's hitting that 2-hour rate, and every one of those people hitting the 2-hour rate are only in once or twice a month. And so we can see, so we start learning who our customers are. Then we start beginning to know how to communicate with them. We get down to our communications again. So once you kind of know the habits of your customers, you can start getting down to being able to communicate what's important to that group, what's important to that group. And we can also know when we see that license plate again, if we wanted to put a message in for them, we could put a message in for them. And we, on the early version of flow through that we did, we did that. It, trying to see if it worked, but we did it, and it worked. So we could. It was great. Plus, the other thing was, if you're a monthly parker, and even if you're a daily parker, once we have you captured and you're in our system, we know who you are the next time you show up. If you go ahead and register yourself as a registered parker, we have your name, credit card number, license number of your car. So you don't have to do anything but just drive in and drive out. From that point on, we charge your credit card when you leave. But what's also important is you can get online and go to the online system, find your account, and if you're in a rental car, you can change the license plate number to your rental car. It's license plate. And you just drive in. I've done that a bunch. With our system, it was one of them was in Washington, D.C. And every time I'd fly into Washington, D.C. and get a rental car, I go on our system and change the license plate number in the system to my rental car's license plate. I drive in, it would say hi Clyde, and I was in. So there's all kinds of things this LPR is doing now, and I kind of am at the point where I think it's safe to say most of the manufacturers of the LPR technology have really caught up to the tremendous demands of using them in a parking lot. It's one thing for the police to use them. It's one thing for a toll road system to use them. It's one thing for an inventory system to use them. In a parking lane, it has to be in that 99.999% accuracy. And we have to be able to know how to recognize you in and out. We're not, I think you and I had this discussion when we were in Vegas a couple of weeks ago, where I said, we're not at Starbucks. If I'm in Starbucks and I've got my app here and I need to add money to the app and I'm in the line, all I do is I step out of the line to let people go by while I'm messing with my Starbucks app. When you're in the parking business, in the car, when you're a customer in the car, you can't step out of line. So you have to get to the gate ready to go through. And with this tremendous increase that we've had in LPR technology, it's really, really great. And I think right now, Lee, every system the parking network is working on today of the new customers, not a part of our PM system, but the new customers, every single one of them have LPR.
Technology has finally caught up with the needs of the parking industry, and the needs of the parking industry are very different from the needs of other industries. So we're really seeing that LPR is ready and should be used as often as possible.
one of the things I was hoping to get out of this podcast is to put the message out to the customers out there, the building managers, municipalities, universities. Let's take a hard look at LPR now. The myths of the past, the bad read rates, and some of the other issues that were blamed on LPR are gone now.
Gone.
Are gone. So now it's a good system. The biggest thing I think we're seeing, and I think it's across the board of the parking industry, it's not the LPR system anymore. It's our failure to do a good job of communicating and training the customers and the parking managers.
Yeah, and that actually leads to my next question I was going to ask. Once we put in LPR into the facility, what training is needed? What does that even look like? Can you tell us about that, like training employees to use it?
Well, the biggest issue with training is LPR now opens up all of this list of capabilities, and the parking managers need to know what this thing is capable of doing, because it can do things they don't even realize. That will improve their ability to manage the parking operation. And again, based on what we're seeing, that's across the board in the parking industry. That's not new. Across the board in the parking industry is we're not getting good training from the manufacturer, from the distributor, to the parking manager to be able to understand what can I really do with this. And we've really seen that recently in the jobs that we've worked, where there's been some significant challenges. And once we are able to assist the parking manager a little bit, they're on it like that. They know this really helps. It's a big change in their operation. It really helps them. But we're not doing a good job of training and communications. I think, Lee, I don't know if we can go back and count all of the podcasts that we've done where those have been ultimately some of the key subject matters in the podcast that we're doing. When you get down to training, organization, and accountability and customer service and all those issues, that communication, they pop into every one of the podcasts that we do. Every time we have an expert out there, like we've had a few here recently and we've had over the course of doing the podcast, if you go back and look at our interviews with experts in the field, they all follow that same trend. They're talking about their operation. But if you start listening, it comes down to communication, accountability, service, and I'm not getting them all right, so be sure I do. Organization, communications, and detail.
Detail, yeah.
Every one of them. See, I have my notes so that we'll know.
Sticky note for the win.
And it never goes away. It stays right here.
Yeah.
So every time we talk about something, and here we are talking about LPR, and the same subjects come up. The same things are important.
Right. Well, before we wrap up, I have one more question.
Sure.
For those of you who are regular listeners here, you know that I am very new to the parking industry. So, Clyde, I have a parking industry 101 question for you. Every time we start talking about LPR, you say this word LIDAR. Laura, I think, kind of mentioned it in our podcast last week, but would you clarify what is LIDAR? What is it exactly? Where can we be watching for it in the technology world? Fill me in on what that is exactly.
LIDAR, and I need to go back and do more research so that I'm better at it, but LIDAR is a new system, part of AI, that's moving into everything that we're doing. And the LIDAR version of this is a laser reader that can recognize patterns. We have one company now, I think this company's doing a great job of this. It's out of the country manufacturer of parks equipment. But one of the things they've done, and I was so glad to see this, because I think the only thing that I really still dislike and have never learned to like in our whole parking business is the loop detectors that detect the presence of the car. And because they were a pain in the butt to install, and they're another maintenance issue, and if the gate doesn't go up, it's usually the gate's working fine. It's a It's a detector issue. This company put in LIDAR, and so you can see it. It's kind of a little collar around their gate that recognizes through the laser system, it recognizes the presence of a car. It recognizes that a person is a person, it's not a car. So it doesn't go up when a person walks by. It recognizes the car and it recognizes where the car is. And so it detects it and it acts just like a leak detector. And when it loses the detection of the car, it sends the gate down. That same system of laser reading of items is creeping into, or has crept in now, to LPR, where they can start reading the shape of a car and recognize, well, that's a Chevy Malibu because I know that shape. And I also know it's a red one. So it can attach that to the license plate that it read. It read the license plate. It says the license plate is 12345. And I also know that this is a Land Rover and it's gray. And the spare tire on the right rear is missing. So it knows. So it knows that stuff. So it just increases our ability to recognize the car in all kinds of different ways. And I've really watched this system that's using LIDAR to replace the loop detectors. And I really haven't seen anything wrong with it yet. Its success rate has been very high, and I've been perfect for the ones I've watched. So that's creeping in. It just takes a long time for these new things to move in because it's all ultimately done by manufacturers who have to decide, am I going to change all my hardware out there to start making this instead of that? So these things don't come in overnight. They come in through some crazy people who take a chance and push it out there, and then it takes a while for everybody else to catch up, if it works. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you. I had wondered about that. Wanted to clarify my understanding.
Well, you may be new, but you know what? You're catching up really fast.
The world, it's never a dull moment. That's for sure. So is there anything else you wanted to add?
Everybody said that to me about the parking business for every one of the 45 years I've been in it, but it's changed a lot. This is not the parking industry that I came into. It's a much different system now that I really, really like. It's very interesting. Okay, so
and speaking of things that we like, one of the things I appreciated about Laura's podcast was she said that with the LPR equipment, she dabbled in several different industries, seeing where LPR could be used. And I hope I remember this correctly, but I think she said that the people of the parking industry were so warm and hospitable and energized that is kind of what helped her stick around parking, because of the people. So hooray for great people and coming to work every day.
That's exactly, you repeated it perfectly. That's exactly what you said. And I remember as I was listening to that, thinking, yes, I knew you guys were good guys. So we have great shows when we go to the shows. It's fun to see all the people. They're all very, very nice. And we are very nice to new people coming in because we're interested to see what they have. And is it, something that we can use? And we always like to have new friends. So this is a good group of people. I've never been disappointed with our industry. And I was really, when she said that, I thought I was really glad to hear her say that.
Yeah, I was too.
She was a true outsider, just like you. True outsider that has come into an industry and really contributed greatly to the improvement. All of you guys contributed greatly to the improvement of our business.
Yes. Well, to all of our wonderful parking listeners, we hope you also find a way to contribute greatly to this great industry. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are, and be sure to tune in next time. Thanks all.
To quote one of the greatest business minds of our time, Charles Munger, he said, "The best thing a human can do is help another human being know more." Here on our Parking Industry Podcast, we want to provide knowledge and resources. If you heard something that sparked your curiosity in today's episode, please reach out on our socials at TPN Consulting. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. See you next time on Our Parking Industry.